Hello, so today's video is going to be a patch review. So this patch is coming out this upcoming Wednesday, and this is going to be patch 14.21 for TFT. I just want to give credit where credit's due. I am taking this from Dog's YouTube channel. If you want to see the original video and see what his opinions are and the reasons for a lot of the changes, please go watch that video. The YouTube is visible at the bottom. I'll try and cursor over it right here. Right, so make sure to go like and subscribe to Mortdog, the original creator of these slides, and thank you very much for creating the slides. And without much further ado, this is going to be me going over the patch for my viewer base and the people that watch or consume TFT content from me. I'm just a small TFT creator where I just post guides and tutorials, as well mostly VOD reviews daily for TFT. So if you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. But basically I just go over my own mistakes, what I did right, what I did wrong, and introduce different comps and kind of give like a rough breakdown of them, and that's what this channel usually is. But occasionally we'll do guides like this where we go over particular particular comps. Treasure Golem's disabled. I think there was like some sort of bug or some sort of issue with it. That's fine. I didn't know about it, so totally down to see that. Like, you know, it's just a change that has to happen. Totally down for that. A lot of times when I'm looking at these, I skim them, by the way. I want to give like my raw reactions to a lot of these changes, so I don't want to, like, you know, get tainted by like other people's reactions or like a lot of the stuff that's being said. So trying to be as genuine as possible with a lot of these changes. So let's go through the large trait changes now. So we have Tahm Kench being adjusted. The Arcana bonus for Tahm Kench for the 4 and 5. I think that's fine. I didn't really particularly like it. And then they're buffing Xerath true damage on 3 Arcana a little bit. It did feel like there was a huge spike from 3 to 4 Arcana for the Xerath true damage in terms of how much like it actually mattered. The Tahm Kench one, I think in general, is also a warranted nerf. I think that Tahm Kench is like the go-to a lot of the times, and it's undervalued how much HP Tahm Kench really does if you're not playing around Arcana Tahm Kench, especially in your late game with certain boards. So that's totally fine. I think these are alright changes. Totally down for that. Chrono, they're decreasing the 2-piece Chrono healing. This is a really good change. Overall, 2 Chrono has been really effective of just playing and getting a little bit of extra juice on your board. A lot of boards really rely on just playing 2 Chrono and getting like this huge healing. An example is like the Kalista board, right? If you look at the Kalista Rakan 5 fairy board that's been like relevant for the past month, I'm sure you've seen it. If you filter like a lot of the stats and look at like with Chrono versus without Chrono, it does make a huge difference. So decreasing that 2-piece Chrono to make it a little bit less of like a random throw-in trait. And they're also buffing the AP on 4-piece Chrono. 4 Chrono is always like in the middle. Like 6 Chrono is very strong. If you haven't had the chance, 6 Chrono is like game winning in a lot of situations. So it's very strong. It's one of the strongest traits you can play. It's like a very like firstable comp, unless other people have really insane comps as well. But 4-piece has always been like really bad, so 4 Chrono is just like kind of like eh. Like you play it kind of does a stun. Some of your units get stunned, some of them don't. It doesn't really do all that much. So buffing 4-piece to try and make that maybe a more viable option is, you know, let's see what happens. Maybe it's a great change. I'm totally down for that. Eldritch, so they're buffing 5 and 7 Eldritch, so they're increasing the spell duration, and then 7 is gaining the bonus AS on it. I think that's fine. They're trying to make Eldritch a little bit more relevant. I think that Eldritch, playing around Eldritch and Syndra reroll is quite strong, especially if you get certain augments to enable it. But honestly, without an Eldritch emblem, a lot of the time playing around like vertical Eldritch, I don't think this is going to change the fact that it's still pretty like sus. It's still pretty bad. So we'll see how it goes. Frost, they're buffing the middle tiers of Frost, so the 5 and 7 Frost is getting a 5 AD and AP buff. Now that does seem a little bit substantial for certain comps. Frost has been really relevant if you hit 7 Frost, but that usually requires you to find an early Diana. So a lot of times you only play this comp if you have an emblem, like if you get a Frost emblem on 2-1, or you get a Frost emblem in your mid game and you think that's a good pivot angle. But Frost has been very forcing. I'm not sure how much the 5 Frost is going to matter. It might just make you a little bit more stable in the mid game, but it's totally fine. And then this was really expected. I figured for sure there'd be Honeymancy changes this patch. So of course we're going to see Honeymancy get adjusted. There are going to be small adjustments. Honeymancy used to be really relevant for much of the set, and it's been repeatedly getting nerfed a lot of the time. But then all of a sudden they did a bug fix because Honeymancy was doing way more damage for a particular reason, which was that like when they attacked shields, they like double procced or something, like the bees. So now that they removed that bug, Honeymancy is basically like abysmal. It's just really bad. So just to make it like actually clickable units, quote unquote clickable, there was going to be a buff to it at one point, so that's expected. By the way, you'll probably notice that this video, I kind of got straight into it, but I'll explain now because, like, you know, the people that maybe like clickbaited and watched and decided they don't like my voice left by now. These patches are going to be very small from now on. If you're not keeping up with competitive TFT and stuff like that, or TFT sets in general, what always happens is there's like a very large patch, and then after that all the patches are very small. If you look at the Mort Dogs video in general, like the last one was like 30-40 minutes, now it's only like 16 minutes, and some of these, like a good portion of them are set 5.5, like the revival changes as well. The reason the patches get a lot more small is because the when you're prepping for competitive TFT, if you're watching competitive TFT, it's going to be regionals next week, I'm pretty sure, and then after that, it's going to be worlds. So it's going to be like the end of set kind of big tournaments. So they don't want to make drastic changes to shake up the meta too much. So whatever the set is, it's going to play the same way. If it's a reroll-ish kind of set, if it's a like, you know, certain comps are strong, certain comps are weak, no, they're all going to get fine-tuned. They're not going to be like drastic sways. It's not going to be like this unit's getting a huge nerf or this unit's getting a huge buff. It's more just going to be like trying to adjust them, because you don't want to like mess up the competitive integrity to a certain point of like just making some random comp really good, and then it's like a knowledge check if you knew that that comp was good or not. It's going to be more so like, hey, we're just going to adjust some of the stuff that already exists. So don't expect wild changes anymore. That's why in my last patch review, I was very vocal about saying, I don't like some of these changes, or I don't like these changes, or I don't like those changes. I said it in the video at one point, but, you know, of course, I know my watch time, I look at it, like most of you just skip to the end or skip to the part that you want to see, so you don't see me explaining a lot of this stuff. But, the reason I was vocal about those things is because, hey, this is the last major change, so whatever changes they decide here, that's probably going to be how the game plays for the rest of the set, because of the way that TFT works. It's how it's been for many sets now. So yeah, that's something you should just take into account. So there's not going to be that many changes in this patch in particular. But anyways, those are the large changes. Then there's some a couple of small changes. So they're buffing 4 Blaster. 4 Blaster is pretty good. But there's like a huge disparity between 4 Blaster and 6 Blaster. So this might buff, like, usually you don't really play 4 Blaster all that much unless you're playing like Hui Ezreal. Like Hui Ezreal reroll. That comp's a little bit like not that strong. It's really good if other people are rerolling, because if you can hit for free, it's a very expensive comp and it requires a lot of items. So you're supposed to be really, really good for it. But if you hit that spot, it caps really, really high. Because if you hit Ezreal 3, Hui 3, Mordekaiser 3, a lot of times you're stronger than everybody in the lobby. And then on top of that, if you can level for Arcana or 6 Blaster, you can win the lobby for free. So it's a very, but you need items for all of them and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I don't think we're going to see 4 Blaster and all of a sudden it's going to be like way better than before. You're still going to need a good spot for that comp. Hunter, they're nerfing 6 Hunter. 6 Hunter has been really strong. I think that's fine. I don't really care too much about it. Mage, they're nerfing 7 Mage by 5% on the AP. Totally valid. I think Mage has been like tearing through everything. There's a lot of other options for Mage as well though. Especially when you're going around Soraka reroll and those type, and Seraphine reroll. So I don't think this is going to make Mage unplayable. It's definitely still going to be playable. It's just trying to like tune it down a little bit so that maybe like it's less like of a contested line where everybody's playing around mages or trying to angle mages. And then Scholar, they're reducing the 6 healing. That's a big aspect of why 6 Scholar was broken. This one I find a little bit more concerning. I'm okay with 6 Scholar being broken because it's like more of a high cost comp. If you make the high cost comps less reliable, then with all the changes of last patch, and as you can see probably in the current patch, rerolls are becoming way more favored in lieu of many of the other 4 and 5 costs. So if you start nerfing some of those ones, I'm a little bit less excited, but that's obviously my take. I think it did need some fine tuning, so hopefully it's not like too much of a problem, if that makes sense. Hopefully it's still like, you know, you see Scholar emblem and you say I'm going to play Scholar and it's really, really reliable to get like a nice top 4. So these are the trait changes. Now we'll go over the champ changes. So the 1-cost champs, so these are the big changes. They just nerfed Warwick a little bit, but now they're buffing another aspect of his kit, so he's getting some compensation, sure. I don't understand why they're buffing Warwick that much. I think there'll be something a little bit later that explains it. I saw, like, you know, when I skimmed over the stuff, you know, I watched the video a little bit in certain parts, right? I'm going to watch the video in full after I make my, my unfiltered initial reaction to everything. But I think that there's going to be other aspects of Warwick reroll that are going to be nerfed, but, you know, of course, this is fine, I guess. The increased healing seems really good. They're not buffing 3-star Warwick, and that's like the big thing. The spell AD percentage buff might be a little bit large, but a lot of times you're not building Giga AD items on Warwick anyways. A lot of times you're building attack speed items on Warwick, so that's why I don't think these changes are too massive. It's not like Warwick all of a sudden is going to be way more broken than it used to be. And then this one, they're increasing the amount of defense gain that you're getting on Jax. It seems pretty substantial. Like this is after he casts, he gets AP, and then the AP gets converted into defenses. This seems pretty substantial, so I think they're trying to make like the Jax multi-striker board a little bit more reliable. I already felt that it was pretty good, but usually now you play towards Hecarim 3 and not the Jax Ashe. But like I said, I'm pretty sure this was really a really strong comp. And they also just changed Ashe from last patch to make her a little bit better. So I think that that might be something that's a lot more relevant, especially if there's like a mage reroller in your lobby. You might be able to play like the Jax reroll and be a little bit more stable with the Jax now. Next, we're going to have the other... I think that's it for 1-cost. So then it's going to be the 2-cost champions. So here there's a couple changes. So first one, Ahri. So Ahri's getting a overall, like, most of her damage is getting increased. It doesn't seem that substantial, right? It's like 500 to 520. That seems like kind of large, but then the extra true damage going from 30 to 35. It seems like pretty good, right? I think Ahri reroll is already in a good spot. I think they just want to make it more of like a reliable thing to play around. Ahri in general has been a little bit on the weaker side with the Zoe reroll line. I did play it one time when I got a Zoe 3 for free, so I rerolled Ahri in my lobby and I did really well. So I definitely have faith in the Ahri unit, and she does a shit ton of damage, especially if you hit like 6 Scholar or something like that. So I don't think these changes needed to happen, personally, but whatever. Like, you know, I've accepted the set is the way the set is, so if they want Ahri reroll to be a thing, let it happen, sure. I think it was fine the way it was, but that's just me. Maybe this will definitely make it easier to play the Ahri. Rumble. So Rumble's getting a small nerf. I don't really understand the mana nerf on Rumble. I think like in general they like buff Vanguards, now they're trying to like adjust them. Rumble to me never screamed out being like really broken or really strong. What makes me really sad is that Sugarcraft itself is really shit, and nerfing Rumble, like, that's another aspect of Sugarcraft that makes it like less playable in my opinion. I feel like Sugarcraft, like, even I tried it out last patch just to see if it was any better, and it wasn't. The pace of the game is so fast, and like now there's like a lot of reroll comps as well, so you don't have enough time to like cash out your Sugarcraft unless you like have a really good opener and you're really strong. So if you're nerfing Rumble, that's one really big aspect of it, right? Because a lot of times like your best opener is like having a Rumble, right, to get the Sugarcraft early. But now if Rumble's a little bit less strong, like he loses some of like his mana nerf means that like when he casts he gets durability, so he's gonna be less tanky inherently, right? Even if it's like by a very small amount. So that makes me like sad, because it makes it so like the Sugarcraft line is probably gonna be less reliable. But you were playing Rumble a lot. He's very popular for Vanguards and Blasters, as well as for like, because being a Vanguard trait fits with the mages really well. Soraka reroll, you often saw Rumbles being demon-like, so I can see the reasoning. It's just like, that's kind of sad to me, because I guess we're just not going to play Sugarcraft anymore. Syndra, 30 to 35% bonus damage from 35 plus casts. So I'm not exactly sure what this means. Like I forget the exact description of Syndra's toolkit, but they're trying to make Syndra a little bit more reliable as a reroll. I know the set started with Syndra, and I don't think it's a good idea if the set ends with Syndra, because then you're just bookmarking it with like a very annoying comp. But I think Syndra needs a little bit. If you want to make like a nice 2-cost reroll meta, then I think Syndra needs to be on par with like the Ahris and the other units. Syndra, I still feel like, no matter what they do to Syndra, you need to start with a Syndra to get her scaling up in order to play around the Syndra. So there's always that gatekeeping with the unit, which inherently makes it like less viable than some of the other 2 costs. So it's fine to see some adjustments there. Nyla kind of sucks, so they're giving her 5 AD. Remember, always 5 AD is a lot. This is base AD. This isn't like the scaled AD. This isn't like percentage of AD that's like later. This is like base AD, which all the items stockpile on. 5 AD many times in the past has brought a unit from being one of the dog shit units of the game to being one of the best units in the game. So we can expect Nyla to be very strong in the next patch. As Warrior and other stuff might have been nerfed, but Nyla might be like a viable reroll option. I'm not 100% sure because it's like the sum of the parts, right? Akali's to me is still pretty shit. Warriors is hard to play because even with the Gwen nerfs and without a spatula for 6 Warrior, it just feels a little bit awkward to play 4 Warrior. I'm not entirely sure. So I don't know how it will play out exactly, but just know that Nyla as a unit in general might be significantly better. Shyvana, they're nerfing 50 HP. I think that's warranted. Shyvana kind of feels like she does nothing, but then if you play vertical shapeshifter, she's kind of really broken. So reducing the base HP makes it so that she gets less off the shapeshifter. It's like something, I don't think it's significant enough where Dragon Shyvana is going to be unplayable or not like played as much anymore with like that shapeshifter line, but it just makes her a little bit less reliable. So your spot now for that comp has to be extremely good. If you're trying to play Shyvana reroll, your spot has to be extremely good. If you're trying to play 6 shapeshifter into fast 9, your spot has to be extremely good, because Shyvana was like your main ticket to get to like that fast 9 situation, right? Shyvana 2 with 3 items. So adjusting that, sure, I think that's fine. I don't think it was as big of an issue as some other comps like Kalista or Khan, but I'm sure we'll see changes to those comps that are a little bit more on the side of being annoying. Small 2 cost changes. So they're changing the Akali dash damage. They're increasing a little bit. That's fine. I think Akali kind of sucks. I never really liked Akali. I think Akali is really hard to build. You want to make her so that she doesn't like die instantly. So a lot of times you put an Edge of Night on her. But then you need to make her with like a really high amount of damage items, because if she doesn't kill the unit that she's targeting, then she just dashes away and it feels like she does nothing. So then you have to balance damage items with like healing items with like Edge of Night, and it's just like it feels like if she had 4 item slots she would benefit a lot more. That's just my opinion. Of course, if you get Vertical Warrior, then you can remove the need for Omnivamp and you get the damage amp, which is really strong, and if you're 5 Pyro you get the Execute. So she's good in certain situations, but I just feel like in a general like reroll sense, I've never really like, oh, hot shit, like I'm so happy I have Akali here. But that's just me. Of course, I tried Akali many times this set. She was one of the units I was most excited for, so I played a lot of Akali at the beginning of the game, beginning of the set, and she let me down enough times where I decided, yeah, I think I have to stop like pogging every time I see Akali. Excuse me. Tristana's getting a buff. With the blaster buff, a lot of times you don't reroll Tristana, but you might be able to reroll Tristana with like the Hui Ezreal as well now, which is pretty interesting. It also makes her a little bit more of a reliable item holder if you're still looking to play Kalista or Khan, which we'll talk about in a bit, I'm sure. So that's nice, I guess. If you're into those lines, that's pretty cool. So Jinx, they're giving a 3 AD nerf to Jinx. This is coming off of the previous AD nerf that they made to Jinx in the last update. I think Jinx is already really strong. I don't like this change. I'm going to say that just as my opinion. If you like this change because you're excited to play Jinx, go ahead. I think like Hunter Jinx, like they nerfed 6 Hunter, but they didn't nerf 4 Hunter. And a lot of times like Jinx Wukong reroll, if they don't nerf Wukong, like I think this line is going to be even stronger. It took a little bit of time. I think people weren't playing Jinx reroll right at the start of the patch, but if you look at the stats right at the start of the last patch, Jinx was really strong. And I mentioned it, right? I talked about it in my last patch review, and I talked about it on stream a lot when I was playing it. I was like, I don't understand why people aren't playing Jinx as much. It might just be because like people are just really tunnel vision on contesting mages, and they don't really know what they're doing with like the spot. But now towards the end of the patch, in every one of my lobbies there's a Jinx player. It might be a region thing as well. I've been watching the regionals tournament. The Tacticians Trial 3, I think it's called. The one where they're qualifying for regionals next week. And most of the EU players, if you watch like the EU version of it, they don't play Jinx Wukong at all. They play like Kassadin reroll a lot more than Jinx Wukong, like Hunter's reroll. And in NA, they play a lot more Hunter's reroll. I'm not sure who exactly is right on which is the stronger option if you're going for like a lower cost reroll comp, but I'm pretty sure Jinx, Kog'Maw, like 4 Hunter, Wukong frontline reroll is fucking strong as shit. So buffing Jinx base AD, which is already like a huge thing, I think is definitely gonna make Jinx Wukong a very reliable comp to play this upcoming patch. So watch out for that, and if you have a good spot, if you start with a Guinsoo and you have a Jinx, just play Jinx. I think you'll top 4. It should be good. Katarina. So now they're buffing her damage. It says 2 nearest enemy bonus damage. I don't know if it was always 2 nearest enemy bonus damage, but it seems like an overall buff to me. Even if it reduces the amount of units that she hits, just doing more damage to kill the units. I think the biggest problem with Katarina sometimes was if you don't have Katarina 3, just kind of pops up, does a bunch of damage and runs away, similar to Akali. But Katarina 3 that actually can kill units was really, really strong. So all around warrior buffs means that, you know, warrior reroll might be a thing. So that's something to look out for in your upcoming games. These are small changes. So they got a... This is green, but I'm pretty sure it's a nerf. So this is spell damage nerf on Bard. I don't understand this change all that much, because I felt like Bard sometimes clutched up, right? Totally. Bard clutched up a lot, but I feel like it seems kind of like bad to me to like, or not bad. It just doesn't seem like, the problem with the last patch was that Bard was clutching up. You know what I mean? Like, very rarely did you ever roll for Bard 3. And Bard 3 was definitely outclassed by most other rerolls. There's no way, like, you were playing Bard 3 over mages if you had items for that. Even if you had a spot for it, you're playing Hwei reroll. And that's where Bard showed up a lot. And then nerfing Bard, like I said before, like, I always hate when Sugarcraft units are getting nerfed. I know they buffed Jinx, right? And, like, yeah, that's a Sugarcraft unit, but like, you're not going to be playing 6 Sugarcraft Jinx. You're just going to play Hunter Jinx at that point. It's just not worth it to try and cash out for Sugarcraft there. So yeah, I'm probably biased because I wanted Sugarcraft to be good, but like, I don't know. I feel like this is a stray bullet, but you know, of course, there's reasoning behind it. Like, certain comms really relied on Bard as being the item holder, and then if Bard is item holder and was doing a bunch of damage, it was kind of weird. So, you know, it makes sense in a way. And then I think this is also a nerf to Swain. I'm not sure if the Katarina is a buff or a nerf. If it's a nerf, that's fine too, but like, I don't think she needed to get nerfed. But either way, Swain changes, just making it... oh, sorry, this is a buff. This is a buff for sure. So this is less total mana, so he casts faster. That's fine. Swain, outside of certain situations where you're playing vertical shapeshifter or vertical frost, I feel like this unit does fucking nothing. So, you know, I'm down. Like, he just dies so much earlier than a lot of the other tanks. Unless you have like Giga AP items on him, that he gets like Giga HP. So, yeah, that's fine. Forecast change is large. So, this is a Rakan change. So what they're doing is they're... I actually saw this one ahead of time, so I can speak a little bit about it. They're greatly reducing his ability to shield. Now, it's not that big. Basically, it's like the starting shield as well as the shield that's part of his kit that scales off of his star level is getting adjusted. So this is a good change, obviously, because Kalista Rakan is very, very strong, and making that a little bit weaker could maybe make that comp a little bit less of a default option. So right now, if you haven't seen, Kalista Rakan with 5 Fairy has been like a go-to really, really strong comp. So of course, if we nerf Rakan, things will get a little bit better. This won't make him unplayable. He is still going to be playable, right? Kalista Rakan, without Kalista nerfs and without Fairy nerfs in general, it's definitely still going to be playable. So that's totally fine. Okay, so now I would like to say like my actual opinion on this stuff, which translates to like most of the set, but every time I say something where I criticize a decision that might look really good, I get a lot of hate comments that are calling me rude names and being like calling me stupid and long paragraphs explaining how I'm like a bad person. So I'm gonna flash this a couple times and I'm gonna leave it up. If you're not interested in my take as a person and what I want to say here, then by all means skip this part, because I'm just going to complain about how I don't like this change, even though it's like an obviously good change. I'm going to explain why I don't like it. And if you're not a fan, if you don't care about my takes, if you don't care about my opinion, you're just stopping by to get the patch review, just look in the bottom of the YouTube and skip past this part. No hard feelings. I don't care. I won't comment. I won't, like, you can start skipping now. I hate this change. I hate this change a lot, because this addresses like a lot of the issues I had with this set. I did not find this set very enjoyable, but I want to say this opinion because, like, obviously if you're somebody who consumes content from me, I think it's important to have context of when I explain things or I complain about something, why I don't like something. Because originally looking at this slide, the first thing I saw was that's ridiculous, right? That's my first thought, but I can't say that very obviously because people are going to be like, well, why wouldn't you like them to nerf Rakan? Obviously it needs a nerf. That Kalista comp is busted, blah blah blah. Like, that's not why I don't like it. When you think about Rakan, outside of the 5 fairy Kalista board or the 7 fairy Kalista board or 9 fairy Kalista board, when is Rakan good? You almost never itemize Rakan in a preserver board. You never itemize Rakan when he's like a +1 unit. You're usually just playing him for preserver. If you're playing like Karma Flex, or you're playing like Gwen Fiora or Warriors with preservers, you are never itemizing the Rakan as your main tank. It is always a Taric paired with a Diana, or it is the Nasus that is paired with the Briar, or it is the Morgana. And you are never itemizing Rakan because he fucking sucks as a tank. He's not that good. The only way he's good is with 5 fairy. So the problem isn't Rakan. The problem is fairy. Now, when you nerf Rakan, that indirectly is a stray bullet to all the other comps, right? If I think to myself, like, let's say I'm playing the game and I'm rolling on level 8 and I hit a Rakan. I'm not excited to see Rakan if I'm not playing Kalista, because if I see Rakan, it's like, this fucking sucks. This guy's useless. I'm not going to put him on my board. He's a fucking shit tank, right? So when you nerf the unit, you're making him even worse. Now, Karma, like, you know, in a worst case scenario that you have to itemize a Rakan, it's even worse now because that's like less of a frontline unit that you have on these other boards that are more flexible. That's what I explain when I tell people, like, I don't like this set, because a lot of the times when they're making these patches, they're making changes that inherently make it feel like I have less flexible options. This is what I mean. They're taking Rakan as a unit, instead of addressing the fairy trait, which is the main problem, because Rakan isn't a broken tank outside of fairy, they're instead nerfing Rakan. So that's why I express it. Now, obviously, maybe I'll stop doing patch reviews in the future, because I don't know how, like, I don't know if it's better if I just be disingenuous and not say my opinion, or if I, like, actually say my opinion or not. So you can let me know if you just don't want, if I should just stop, if you're somebody who watches my videos regularly, and then I'll stop. But, you know, that's just the way things are. So that's all I'll say on it, and now we'll move on to the next slide. Item changes. So they're getting rid of Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. I think this is a great change because I don't like Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. I feel like it was always a lottery of if somebody hits Corrupt Vampiric Scepter, they can just get a free #1 with Warwick reroll. It made artifacts really, really annoying. There's some of the other artifacts that are really egregious as well. This isn't the only one, but it was like you felt it really hard because a lot of the other broken artifacts combos are not on 1 cost. They're usually on like higher cost units. So this one was just like, you just start 2-1, you look around, and there's a guy with a Warwick and Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. You're like, oh, GG, that guy's going first. So I think that's really good. They could have made this change a lot earlier. I think it makes sense to make this change now, because remember what I was talking about before, regionals and tournaments are coming up. I really think that you don't want the world champion to be decided by somebody hit Corrupt Vampiric Scepter, right? Like, that just seems really stupid, and I think it would be like really bad. So I enjoy that they did these changes. So I think it's a really good time to do these changes. So just remove it. I'm down. Right? It wasn't that strong. It's not a good item outside of that one particular scenario, but you have to understand that's how Ornn artifacts are now. Ornn artifacts aren't like generic for the most part, where you just take it and you put on any unit that you want. They're like, you know, you hit Exodia, you top deck Exodia, and you just win the game. So that's fine. Mogul's Mail, they're buffing the HP. They nerfed the base HP and they nerfed some other spot. It's been a pretty bad item, so I think that's a fine change. I'm totally down for that. And then unstable treasure chest. They're giving you more items. I think this unstable treasure chest, in some comps, it's really good. So like certain comps that are really greedy for items, it might actually work out to be a pretty good item now. Zephyr, they're nerfing the attack speed that it gives. This is actually a huge nerf to the attack speed. Zephyr you usually take for the utility, but a lot of people didn't realize it also gave your team a bunch of attack speed, namely 8%. So this is actually a huge change. I don't know if it will greatly affect how good Zephyr does in the stats, because a lot of times you're taking Zephyr to like cheese your opponent a lot of the time. But it does make it like more of a decision that you have to make. It's not like, obviously I'll take Zephyr because I can like win rounds for free by just like Zephyring their carry. So this is actually pretty cool. And Zhonya's, they're making the AP a little bit. Zhonya's has been one of the best Ornn artifacts for a while, so that's totally fine. I don't like this change personally because I felt like it was also one of the more fun ones to play. But that might be a me thing that I like it because it's very flexible. Like it works on multiple different units, and it's very easy to get because you can get it via augment with Spellcaster's Toolbox. So we'll see how it all shapes out, but I think that's fine. And then I think after item, it doesn't look like they're doing some augment changes. So these are the last ones. Balanced budget plus they're giving more gold. I felt like you never really took it that much, so I think that's fine. I don't think that being a big problem. Category 5, pretty strong, especially with hunters, so bringing it down a notch, that's totally fine. Cauterize no longer appears on 2-1. That's the pyro like hero augment. I think Cauterize is like always bad. I don't think it does that much for the board in general. So we'll see. The biggest problem that I've seen with this is that sometimes people hit Exodia by picking Cauterize and then hitting the Shen Hero augment, because Shen Hero can only appear on 3-2. So if you hit Cauterize into Shen Hero, you just win the game for free. So that's no longer an option anymore. So I guess that's something to look forward to, I guess. Combat Caster, it has been really strong. This is like one of those like generic augments that you can just take. It's also really good on Kalista, so nerfing that from 4 to 3 seconds I think is an okay change. But I do like Combat Caster just to take like I like augments where you could just take them and they work with any comp, and Combat Caster was kind of like that, so make it a little bit worse. Kind of like, makes me sad, but I understand why. It was very strong, so it needed a nerf. Fast forward, sure, no longer appears on 2-1. I didn't want to take it on 2-1. Hunting Frenzy. So, Hunting Frenzy, the base AS now is getting dropped from 10 to 5. I think that's totally valid. Hunting Frenzy is really broken, not only for the AS, but also the execute. And Jinx Reroll, this was like a game-winning augment, right? If you were already committed to like Jinx Wukong Reroll, if like it was just one of the outs, right? That comp has a lot of augments that can just like win you on the spot, right? Hunter Emblem, Hunting Frenzy used to be like that, and Spin to Win. So if you hit any of those augments, especially in like a gold augment galaxy, which you can get, it was crazy. So I'm okay with this. The execute is still there, so I don't think it's gonna be that much affected, but at least you get less starting AS, which is it's substantial enough that it's like notable. So that's a good change. Learning to spell, yes, it's one of the more broken ones. They buffed it to 18, and now there's a lot of like AP rerolls, especially with the mages and the 1-cost reroll version of that. So nerfing that, it's something needed to change. It's like one of the best performing augments right now. But that's a lot of it's tied to like being reroll AP. But no matter what, if there's a reroll AP line, then learning to spell is gonna be like best in slot a lot of the time. So that's a good change. Little Buddies also is really strong, so they're nerfing that a little bit. This is kind of sad though, because Little Buddies is more geared towards like higher cost comps, and that's like one of the win conditions, or like one of the playable conditions for like Rise without a spat, for example. So it hurts a lot of those comps, because like you can't just take Little Buddies and say, oh, I guess I can pivot into these comps now, or I can play these comps. But at the same time, it was extremely strong, so it needed to get nerfed, probably like a small adjustment. So hopefully it's still takeable. Raid Boss, they updated it, so that's totally fine. Royal Guard, they updated it. Less healing on Royal Guard is fine. I don't even think Royal Guard is that strong. It's usually just like playing fairy, so whatever. I'm down for a nerf, sure. Assassin's Toolbox has been disabled. I'm not sure why, if it was bugged, and Support Golem 2 has been disabled. I think Support Golem 2 is just way too strong. I don't think it was bugged or anything. I think they just don't want to have it anymore. One thing I will say about items is that I thought they were going to update Deathfire Grasp. So Deathfire Grasp right now is bugged. Like the Ornn artifact is bugged. But it's not like actually bugged. It just gives you the damage amp for the rest of the fight, but they've mentioned, like, devs have said, according to like Twitter and stuff that I've read, that they want to do it like that. So it's one of those, like, we're gonna update what the description says to match what the item does. So like, if you're worried about the Deathfire Grass bug that you've heard of, it's not like really a bug. I don't think it's bug abusing. I think they've openly stated that they're gonna transfer, like, they're gonna update the tooltip. So I'm just curious why they didn't put it in the patch notes. So maybe they just didn't get around to it. So that's something just to keep in mind. Set 5.5 revival, I'm not really concerned about. If you are concerned about this is what it looks like. You can pause the video and read. Bug fixes. So Lucky Gloves now works correctly after polymorphing. That happened to me once or twice in the set, so that's a good change. Lucky Gloves now updates the existing Thief Gloves the round you take the augment. That also has happened to me before, but a lot of times I'm transitioning my board anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think it happened all the time. This wasn't like an all the time thing. It happened only sometimes. Stacking multiple hands of justice now grants the correct amount of Omni-Man. This was a bug with like old like Bloodthirster, I think, from what I've heard. Which is why you usually like pair different healings, but I didn't know it was with Hodge. I didn't even know about that, but I don't think I've ever had a problem with that. Draconic Mastery now still grants bonus stats to dragons without the dragon trait active. That's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I usually have dragon active all the time when I'm playing that trait. Call to Chaos will now correctly show that it gives 5 random emblems instead of 4. I didn't even know that, but I don't even think it was in the tooltip, but sure, I'm down. Unstable treasure chests will now be updated to match the new targeting logic. Yep, so they changed that last patch where the treasure chest gives it to like the strongest units instead of the closest units, and I think it still says closest units. Set 5.5, these are for you guys, right? These are for you guys that are enjoying set 5.5. I'm not really into that. But anyways, overall, really good patch. I think it's just like fine tuning, of course. Obviously, my video is going to be a little bit longer because I'm giving my opinion on a lot of the matters. But you know, it's just like adjusting some of the reroll comms, making some things a little bit stronger if they want them to be more relevant, and obviously adjusting Kalista recon because that was like the big 4-cost comp that was big and scary. This probably will be a reroll patch, right? There's very they're buffing a lot of the low cost units again. It's like the second consecutive patch, but like I said, whatever the meta was the last patch, that's probably what the meta is going to be for the rest of the set. So if you enjoy the set, keep enjoying the set. If you don't enjoy the set, it's going to be around the same. So without much ado, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the video and have a great rest of your day. But yeah, overall good patch, adjusting the set, and if you're just keep doing what you've been doing, thumbs up all around. See ya.